Damizza, a.k.a. Damian Young.
Legend in my own mind.
Welcome.
No, thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me, man.
You know what's crazy is like as a kid, I knew your name. I wasn't in radio as a kid, obviously. So I didn't know that you were the program director of Power 106.
Well, you know, that's actually kind of it's interesting because I was the senior director of programming.
Okay, yeah. What were you doing at Power 106 and what years? Because I just remember you from the Shay Shy shit.
Okay. Well, it's actually a little longer story.
Yeah.
I was in Santa Barbara doing alternative radio when I started at 12 years old under Michael Newman and Steve Smith.
Yep. Rest in peace, Steve Smith.
Yes, rest in peace, big dog Steve Smith. And they were the local program director and music director.
Right.
So I would just call up and bug Michael Newman, who was the night jock. I'd just call and, just a fan wanted to win stuff and stuff. And finally I became his intern. And at 17, I became the program director of that radio station.
Jesus.
And I broke a group called Garbage.
Shout out to Garbage.
Yeah, Garbage was dope.
A chick singer, right?
Yeah, Shirley Manson.
Yeah.
Which was
Shirley
crazy.
Manson, yeah.
And, what I noticed is the producer. Butch Vig, who did Nevermind for Nirvana and then Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream. I said, well, wait a minute. If he just did those records, then this little demo that I got from Almo Sounds that just said produced by Butch Vig, it means it's probably going to be pretty big.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if he's behind it.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, and that's the first time I realized, okay, so producers. You know what I mean? That's when it clicked about producers. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take 3 songs off that album and just start playing them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the label was like, yo, you broke Garbage. So when they blew up and they went platinum, they said, well, we owe you a favor. What do you want? You want to do like a flyaway? They're doing the Weenie Roast. They're going on tour with Smashing Pumpkins. You want to do something? I said, no, I want them to come to Santa Barbara and do this 200-person club. And they said, I don't think you heard us. They went platinum. They're going on tour with Smashing Pumpkins, and they're doing that. And I said, well, I guess you guys aren't, your word doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And they were like, so they called Butch Vig, and they said, there's this like 17-year-old, 18-year-old program director in Santa Barbara who broke, the records and all this kind of stuff. Because even like Kevin Weatherly at K-Rock and all those guys would drive to Santa Barbara.
Right.
And they'd hear this alternative station and they'd hear these records. And, I'd be pulling like, when I'd go to London or something, I'd hear like Pennies, Nevermind, or Pennies from Smashing Pumpkins. Mm-hmm. It was like an import. And then I'd make it a current on our station as exclusive content. And everybody would be like, where the hell is he finding these records and doing stuff like that? So that's also where I learned about exclusive content. Investing in artists early and having exclusive content was like the key.
Especially back then, because radio was like really that's where you heard stuff first.
Yeah.
There was no internet. There was no
Yeah. It was
no MySpace. Yeah.
It was what it was.
It was like you read about it in the source and then you heard about it on the radio or you saw it on BT,
Yeah, it was nuts. So anyways, Butch Vig said, well, did you make the promise? And the rep said yes. And they said, well, I guess the one day off that we have between the Weenie Roast and the Smashing Pumpkins tour, we're doing a show in Santa Barbara. So the whole industry was like, how did this 17-year-old, get
off,
a platinum approaching double Butch Vig in a 200-seat club that sold out in half a minute and the streets flooded and, all of this news press and all this. So Bruce St. James came to that show.
Bruce is who was my first PD ever.
Oh, wow. I love Bruce St. James.
Yes, I love Bruce.
He got me my job at Power. So I saw Bruce there and I said, look, I had to do alternative because it was a rock town.
Right.
I wanted to do hip hop first.
Right.
But they said that's just not going to work.
Right.
And even in LA, when we wanted to switch to doing, West Coast rap, I mean, you have to remember when I got to Power, they were playing everything from Boys to Men 1 second, then Mobb Deep, then Artie the One Man Party, then, Richard Humpty Vision for one show. Shout out Richard Humpty Vision, my dog. Bad Boy Bill. All of them. They said, all we have is this Sunday night coast to coast show board op position. And I was like, great, I'll take it. And they're like, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. You're programming 2 stations in Santa Barbara, but you want to come and board op on Sunday nights at Power 106. I said, look, I'll sweep the damn floors. Like, whatever you want me to do, whatever. So I walk in to board up for this show, and there's Curtis Blow.
Oh, shit.
And I was like...
So what year is this?
This is, 95, 96.
Okay.
So Curtis saw how nervous I was and stuff, and he was like, look, just don't mess up, and I will tell you a story of hip-hop every night after the show. And I was like, kid in a candy store. So fast forward about a year, Curtis leaves. The next one to come in to do that show is Ice-T.
Crazy.
His engineer for like Ricochet and all that was this guy named Vacek. Well, when I was like 14, I wanted to be a rapper. Right. So I was working in Burbank at the studio called Milagro. In the back of that studio was a studio called Back Room where Battle Cat was working. And he was doing stuff like Quo and Tom Jones and all this kind of stuff. So like, you know, and this is why I say about mentorship. You know, this is where I learned mentorship from. It's because there was this one night where Battle Cat erased all of his sounds. You know, he's in the back, and he's like, I just lost every sound I ever made, you know, flipping out. And here comes this little kid wanting to be a rapper, little white kid from Santa Barbara, you know, and says, hey, but what was that guitar sound you used on Quo? Oh, well, wait a minute, Michael Jackson sent over the tape and da-da-da-da-da, and da-da. Totally stops all of it and takes the time to tell this kid, you know, some game.
Right.
And I'm like, click, another one about mentorship. Steve Smith, Michael Newman, Battle Cat. You know, that's, oh, okay. You know, that's how that works. You know what I mean? Like, and seeing interviews with Michael Jackson was saying, like, you know, where I come from in the school I come from, if, you know, a kid comes up and says, that's a nice shirt, you take it off and you hand it to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the artist and mentorship school that I came up in. You know what I mean? So anyways, Ice-T does the same thing. Vacek, like what I was saying about Vacek, is the engineer happened to be, you know, Ice-T's engineer. So when I saw Ice-T the first time, I said, oh, I know Vacek. Then we started talking and, you know, blah, 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 blah. So Ice-T started teaching me. Well, Bruce gets ready to leave Power 106.
To go to KKFR.
To go to KKFR as the PD. And he says to Michelle Mercer, you might want to talk to that kid from Santa Barbara. You know, I saw him at this garbage show. I think he might have, you know, whatever. So shout out to Bruce St. James. He got me my job at Power 106.
Crazy.
So then I became the music director at Power 106.
So you were the MD. Who was the PD? Jimmy Steele?
No, Michelle Mercer.
Michelle Mercer.
Rick
okay.
Cummings had just left.
Okay.
And Michelle Mercer was the PD.